protection on the front.
It's great, isn't it?
That's a great helmet. You see from this angle, not quite, but it is an excellent design. As he makes the correction, coming down the hill, onto the back straight, takes you to turn 11. But never mind turn 11. We have sent Jolyon Palmer from the combox to the side of the racetrack. He's made his way to turn number 4, where we can check in with JP.
Hello, guys. I've made it to the good spot here. Turn number 4, Lewis Hamilton just comes past. I haven't seen him out here for a while, so he's on track, which is good news. Charles Leclerc has just made his way out as well. I have to say, it was really quiet when I came out here. It was just Valtteri Bottas and Max Verstappen circulating. There's been a few more cars on track since. The cars look really good out on circuit. I was standing at this point 12 months ago, and the contrast is really stark. First of all, you were just mentioning porpoising. I can't really see any coming into this corner. It's a long straight heading into turn 4 here. DRS is open as well, and the cars look fairly hooked up. The braking point is a big one, about 70, 80 meters. You're picking up a brake point, and we've got a couple of cars coming through now. Esteban Ocon in the Alpine trundling, and the Williams there of Logan Sargent as well coming through. They're all coming through on slow laps now. But on the high speed, they look good under braking. The one thing that they do all have in common, especially the Red Bull I noticed coming through, and he's coming through in a moment as well. Here comes Max in the Red Bull, sweeping through turn 4. Also, not particularly leaning on it at this time, but he was just a moment ago, and just got a little bit squirmy coming out of this turn 4 corner. It's a tricky one because you go over the crest here towards the exit, running wide, running maybe out of road on the exit as well. But Max, it was his first lap out of the pits, and he was definitely really leaning on it at that time. So the Red Bull looks on the edge, as we've seen so many cars being of rear grip. But Max looked like he had confidence to lean on it and find a bit of grip on the rear axle. Look round and see Charles Leclerc coming in the Ferrari. Haven't yet seen him on a real attack lap, and it does not look like this is going to be one either for Charles. So hopefully we get a view of a Ferrari on full tilt right now, but Leclerc still quite clearly not pressing on just then. But this is a good corner to just see everything that's going on. You've got a big braking zone. Here comes Lewis Hamilton. This is leaning on now in the Mercedes, and again, he's actually fighting the car quite a lot more than Verstappen was in the Red Bull. So Hamilton there, similar line, getting wide, getting out over the rise on the exit. So having two stabs at fighting the correction there. And whereas Verstappen looked like he could just drift it slightly and catch it, Hamilton just had to just wait a little bit more for the throttle. So the Red Bull may be hooked up more at this point. We'll see what Sargent does in the Williams. He's definitely more tentative at this stage, and I wouldn't blame him on that, but that was using a little bit less road than the Red Bull and the Mercedes, and not quite as on the edge either. Verstappen through once more. Nice and under control at this point, but I'm enjoying it down here. The conditions are actually pretty good right now. The temperature's really dropping. The sun is starting to go down. I think it's 5:30 is the official sundown time, so we've got a while till that. Basic sun will be a problem in some corners, not this one. It's golden hour just behind me, and I'm going to move on somewhere else, guys. It's all looking pretty good here.
Thank you very much, Jolly.
And important, the last car past Jolyon Palmer out on track there was Fernando Alonso, who until that point had just 2 laps to his name. So whatever the issue with Alonso, he is back out on track for his 3rd lap of the day. So that's pretty huge for Aston Martin. Been in the garage for an hour and a bit.
Verstappen has hit the century. He's up to 100 laps in the day so far. In both sessions, every other team deciding to run different drivers in the morning to the afternoon session. And Logan Sargent with another of those turn 10 lockups that we'll see for everyone across the board. So important that Fernando Alonso is out on the circuit. And this is our first look on the racetrack of Fernando Alonso with his new team, deciding to go to Aston Martin. Slightly unusual in that this is a team building up, they hope, to a championship challenge rather than a proven name like he's been at in the past, the championship pedigree. So that line is slightly unusual if you look at his career so far. But let's go back to launch watch one last time. How did you read his mood from the Aston Martin launch?
Well, throughout last year when I was talking to Fernando, he would constantly talk about his excitement of getting green and leaving the Alpine project behind. Obviously, we know how frustrating that year was, particularly in terms of reliability. And he was looking forward to this year, so you can imagine how excited he was on car launch day about the prospect of just being a few days away from getting a chance to just test out the machinery that he would have seen over the winter come into fruition. I think he's, confident, like he always is, or at least in my experience. He just believes that he can go there and really add something to the operation, really make that car go 2 tenths, 3 tenths faster because he's Fernando Alonso. I genuinely think he believes that. And his experience would suggest, and history would suggest, that he's going to be able to do that. It's not ideal, and he admitted that he's only got 3 days of testing, like everybody admitted, but he was talking about how they took quite a few races last in his first season, rather, Alpine to shake off that rust.
Yes.
And so he is envisaging that there might be that kind of process here. There is going to be a lot more on his shoulders, though, isn't there, if Lance doesn't make that first race. There's going to, there isn't Lance there to maybe help him along with certain things where Lance has had that experience of working with Aston Martin for several years now. So I think that's going to make life trickier. But the other thing that was really interesting, I thought, that came out of it, I think he's, confident, like he always is, or at least in my experience, he just believes that he can go there and really add something to the operation, really make that car go 2 tenths, 3 tenths faster because he's Fernando Alonso. I genuinely think he believes that. His experience would suggest, and history would suggest, that he's going to be able to do that. It's not ideal, and he admitted that he's only got 3 days of testing, like everybody, admittedly, but he was talking about how they took quite a few races last in his first season, rather, Alpine to shake off that rust.
Yes.
And so he is envisaging that there might be that kind of process here. There is going to be a lot more on his shoulders, though, isn't there? If Lance doesn't make that first race, there's going to, there isn't Lance there to maybe help him along with certain things where Lance has had that experience of working with Aston Martin for several years now. So I think that's going to make life trickier. But the other thing that was really interesting, I thought, that came out of it,
You know, it shows you what you're doing on the man of the game. Like, it shows you, oh, it's your country.
Yeah, it's exciting to see.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much. A lot going on for Pirelli. It's good.
As usual.
It's good. Absolutely, it's brilliant to see.
Yeah.
Great to catch up with you. Thank you so much,
Thank you.
Mario. Back to you in commentary, boys.
Thank you very much to Laura and Mario for giving us the update for all things tyres in 2023. If there was bouncing for the Ferrari, it seems even more intense over those bumps into turn one, but certainly before for Esteban Ocon. So not just the Ferrari being affected as the Frenchman climbs the hill to turn number 4 once again. The sun ever lower in the sky. You get some wonderful shots around this time. The floodlights are not yet on, but will be illuminated in short order, I imagine, as Ocon, having his stint in the car this afternoon, placed with a driver. They were both asked this. First question out of the gate. How do you feel about having Pierre Gasly or Esteban Ocon as your teammate? And they both reacted like, really? Are you going to go with this as the first question?
It's like, how many times is everybody going to ask Kevin and
Okay,
Nico
let's update the
Hülkenberg
setup.
Yeah, same thing.
about Hungary?
Yeah. And yet, it is interesting because Esteban Ocon, terrific driver, Grand Prix winner, always great with the media, always with a great demeanour, but he can rub a teammate up the wrong way.
Okay, track's
Yeah, and
quiet
that's
right
the
now.
team.
Let's get out there while it's clear. Let's get a few laps under our belt.
It's a really fascinating one, and you know it from junior Formula, and we've seen it all the way through the junior categories and into Formula One. He is an incredibly likeable guy. He's thoughtful, seems genuine, decent, very nice, approachable, lovely bloke, and yet is roundly disliked by almost everyone he's ever raced against.
Wow.
And but I'm not saying anything that's not well known. You know, it's so strange.
It is really odd. I don't think there's a greater juxtaposition between a driver in the car and a driver out of the car than Esteban Ocon. So add into the mix that there's a little bit of history, slightly ill-defined what that history is, between him and Pierre. The team say they're confident they're going to work together. The drivers, they say they're confident they're going to be able to work together. You get a repeat of, say, the Alpine side-by-side in Saudi Arabia in race 2. Does that hold? Can that hold with those two drivers in the same team?
Time to tell. You know,
It's going to be a fascinating
Time will
story.
tell.
Almost maybe because of the history that's there, maybe he's going to have to
Yeah, he's going to have to rein it in.
slightly
And
compare.
also given his own attitude, you know, because Pierre is the one coming in. I think not so much with something to prove. He's gone there and is one of the very highly regarded drivers. But perhaps not so much after last season. If we were talking 12 months ago, Pierre Gasly was absolutely at the top of his way. Not so much after the last 12 months. I think last year took something of a shine off that. But he is still highly regarded. There is massive expectation from him, and moving to a factory team, this is his shot, this is his chance.
And this is what he's wanted for years.
Yes, and he's
been open about it.
not going to be the one to, I don't think, to push things in a one versus one teammate versus teammate situation, whereas we know that Esteban will push things with a teammate. But it is, I mean, it is a fascinating thing. But it's, you know, Lance Stroll and Esteban Ocon have become very, very close friends over the years. And I think because for both of them, as they were coming through the junior formulas, they were both kind of outcasts in a weird way. And they sort of found this commonality, this common space where they were both pushed to the fringes for very differing reasons. And they kind of found each other and found this really unique friendship with one another.
We were speaking earlier about Alpine's desire to keep hold of 4th place and to close the gap down to the big 3 teams. They need the drivers to not just say it's all okay, they actually do need the drivers to have a harmonious relationship if they're going to drive each other on.
Oh, for sure. I think, you know, we've said 340 odd points it was, that gap between Alpine and P4 and Mercedes and P3. They've got to have them working in harmony. Early on last year, we often saw Fernando and Esteban fighting over the same piece of racetrack. They were kind of qualifying near enough next to each other. It will depend, I guess, in the early races this year, whether or not Pierre and Esteban are finding themselves alongside each other on the grid, and then who does what when it comes down to turn one and how much space you give each other. But both of them are going to be told in no one.
That whole back line, especially Zinchenko, all the rest of you, out the fella.
In the first couple of races, that's the point they need to cut it out, not halfway through the season, because by then gripes have been had, everything's established, and one driver's going to feel, you know, put upon or done over. And so they got, if there is even a snip of it, they have got to nip it in the bud straight away.
Hopefully they've learned their lessons from last year, and Otmar was the one, obviously, he was dealing with the Checo and Esteban difficulties when they were, was it Force India racing?
Yeah.
What the name of the team was there, whatever. But he obviously has experience of that, so you're right, it kind of is up to them to nip that in the bud early doors. But who knows, it could, one of them could just have big gap in the other driver.
Now, worrying times down at McLaren, and interestingly, the camera just zoomed in, and you know, I was down in the pits and I was pointing at the wheel brows. So there appears to be some metal tape on the inside of the wheel brow. I think, possibly, if it zooms out. Yeah, just there. See, and I think that is a makeshift fix on the inside, just down in the middle there. So it looks like there's... yeah, it looks like there's an awful lot of work going on. That is definite issues on those wheel brows, which are part of the braking. They're attached to the brakes and the cape pins down there. I think Sam Collins might actually be down there. But there's a lot of work, and that would, I think, explain why Lando Norris down there with just 5 laps to his name in the afternoon session. But yeah, that issue which I noticed down there in the pits, still not fixed. And there's a heat gun on the other side as well, theoretically, I think, fixing the issues.
Sam, you're down at McLaren. Can you tell us more?
Certainly, yeah. Will's been giving us a very good oversight of it. So I'll start about what's going on behind the front axle, and that's Lando Norris having a look at his cockpit settings. He's not particularly happy with something, so they're making some adjustments in the cockpit to get the English driver a little bit more comfortable in his new McLaren. A lot of conversations going on about that. But as Will pointed out, you can see huge amounts of tape being applied to the inside of the wheel brows, those big heat guns being pumped onto those panels, and they're just trying to repair those so they can get that car back out on track before the session ends tonight. But a lot of work going on there. I thought at first it was a brake cooling problem. It's not, but it is, and they're just trying to get it sorted to take it back out on track. But that work is continuing, and the heat guns are being adjusted, so it doesn't look like it's completing anytime soon. But we probably will see the McLaren back out on track in a little while. But for now, it's not looking great down here at the 60th anniversary garage for McLaren.
Sam, you say that's a manufacturing
Okay, got 4 laps of fuel remaining.
Do you know if that's something that therefore is going to be the case with any wheel brow they're trying to put on the car, if it is indeed a manufacturing fault, or is it, if it's a design fault, will this be something they'll be able to rectify over the next 48 hours in testing, or is that thing just going to lose structural integrity every time they send it out?
48 hours, they could probably get some new parts out from England, just about. However, to do it in the garage, I think there's going to be a lot of work that's done on these parts overnight. These guys know what they're doing. They can stiffen up a part, they can make it a bit stronger. Maybe not work quite as well as they intended. That's what happened with their brakes last year. But in this situation, they're just trying to patch it up. It's, to use an expression that Ron Dennis would hate, it's a bit of a bodge job, but it will keep the car on track and it will get the car going. They will have a proper fix in the pipeline for this issue, though.
Oh dear.
Thanks, Sam. Bodge job, gubbins, whippersnapper. Testing is back. With all the ridiculous terminology that we love.
This is not the start in the first couple of races. That's the point they need to cut it out, not halfway through the season, because by then, gripes have been had, everything's established, and one driver's going to feel, you know, put upon or done over. And so they've got, if there is even a sniff of it, they have got to nip it in the bud straight away.
Hopefully they've learned their lessons with last year, and Otmar was the one, obviously, he was dealing with the Checo and Esteban difficulties when they were at, was it Force India Racing Point?
Yeah.
Or the name of the team was there or then, but he obviously has experience of that, so you're right, it kind of is up to them to nip that in the bud early doors, but who knows, it could, one of them could just have big gap in the other drive.
Now, worrying times down at McLaren, and interestingly, the camera just zoomed in, and you know when I was down in the pits and I was pointing at the wheel brows, so there appears to be some metal tape on the inside of the wheel brow. I think, possibly, if it zooms out, yeah, just there. See, and I think that is a makeshift fix on the inside, just down in the middle there. So it looks like there's... yeah, it looks like there's an awful lot of work going on. That is definite issues on those wheel brows, which are part of the braking. They're attached to the brakes and the cape tins down there. I think Sam Collins might actually be down there. But there's a lot of work, and that would, I think, explain why Lando Norris down there with just 5 laps to his name in the afternoon session. But yeah, that issue which I know is down there in the pits, still not fixed. And there's a heat gun on the other side as well, theoretically, I think, fixing the issues.
Sam, you're down at McLaren. Can you tell us more?
Certainly, yeah. Will's been giving us a very good oversight of it. So I'll start about what's going on behind the front axle, and that's Lando Norris having a look at his cockpit settings. He's not particularly happy with something, so they're making some adjustments in the cockpit to get the English driver a little bit more comfortable in his new McLaren. A lot of conversations going on about that. But as Will pointed out, you can see huge amounts of tape being applied to the inside of the wheel brows, those big heat guns being pumped onto those panels, and they're just trying to repair those so they can get that car back out on track before the session ends tonight. But a lot of work going on there. I thought at first it was a great fueling problem. It's not, but it is a manufacturing problem here for the McLaren team, and they're just trying to get it sorted to take it back out on track. But that work is continuing, and the heat guns are being adjusted, so it doesn't look like it's completing anytime soon. But we probably will see the McLaren back out on track in a little while, but for now it's not looking great down here at the 60th anniversary garage for McLaren.
Sam, you say that's a manufacturing fault.
Okay, just want to remind
do you know if
you
that's
to keep
something
an eye on
that
the tyre temperatures,
therefore is
which
going to
you
be
can
the
do on
case
the
with
temperature
any
panel
wheel
of the
brow that
MFD.
is
We monitor
the car,
carcass
if it is
temperature
indeed
and
a
surface
manufacturing
temperature.
fault, or is it,
You'll
if
get the
it's
best
a
performance
design
when
fault?
both
Will this be
inside
something
a
they'll be
normal
able to
operating
rectify
window.
over the next
Surface
48
temps
hours
tend
of
to
testing, or
fluctuate
is that thing
faster,
just
so
going to
try a few laps with the data
lose
open
structure and
in a
integrity
field
every
house
time they send it
control.
out?
48 hours, they could probably get some new parts out from England, just about. However, to do it in the garage, I think there's going to be a lot of work that's done on these parts overnight. These guys know what they're doing. They can stiffen up the part, they can make it a bit stronger. Maybe not work quite as well as they intended. That's what happened with their brakes last year. But in this situation, they're just trying to patch it up. It's, to use an expression that Ron Dennis would hate, it's a bit of a bodge job, but it will keep the car on track and it will get the car going. They will have a proper fix in the pipeline for this issue, though.
Oh dear.
Thanks, Sam. Bodge job, gubbins, whippersnapper. Testing is back. With all the ridiculous terminology that we love.
This is not the start.
Okay, the forecast looking good for this session. We've got dry weather all the way. All set, we're ready to go, so let's get the car out onto the track.
big braking and the slow speed, but I have seen it come through here, and it's coming right towards us now, it looks like. That is not, that's Glover's green, and it's slow moving Williams. There you go. Oh, that's a bright green. Too bright, and it's Logan Sargent on a slow lap this time. But the Aston Martin in the hands of Fernando Alonso look better than the midfield cars that it will be up against through this corner at least. Again, combating understeer on the entry, getting pushed towards that exit. You have to wait for the throttle. The Aston looks better, more points on the entry, better than the Alpine as well, which looks okay. But this is probably the one fast corner on the circuit, so being good at this corner doesn't guarantee you success. Kind of anywhere else, but it does suggest that you've got a huge working package in the faster corners. And it's a great baseline to go from. Hamilton on a slow lap, so we'll wait for him to come through on a fast lap on the next time around. But it's very quiet as well. I haven't seen him too much this afternoon, Lewis Hamilton. But it's a tricky corner then to come through. Nibble, it's the slightest bit of apex, but in the fast corners you don't want to be taking the curve on the apex, on the exit as well. It pulls away from you, and it's easy if you touch the curve too much. You're just going to get sucked off to the outside there and end up in trouble. Charles Leclerc had a spin this time last season, so that's one you want to avoid. The entry curve is one you can take, and that's another one where we're seeing differences between the drivers and the cars. Ferrari and Red Bull, Verstappen and Leclerc able to take a lot more curve on the entry, which just means that you're widening your racing line and having a wider radius corner vis-a-vis, you can carry a bit more speed. Some of the other ones, Magnussen in the Haas, tentative with the curb. The AlphaTauri as well, tentative with that entry curve. And if you can't take it, you're just narrowing your corner. Sargent not on that entry curve, going very wide on the exit as well with understeer, pushing on that time around, taking a little bit of exit, but average, half of the course in the midfield, I would say the Williams here. And again, no entry curve for the Alfa Romeo there of Valtteri Bottas. Cars in general, they're looking so much better than last year though, guys, around the circuit. Last year it was porpoising, the cars were looking scruffy, sliding on both axles. It's just an evolution of the rules, but we've had 12 months of it to then produce this car, and they're looking so much better. I'm waiting for a Mercedes. I'm hoping this is going to be Lewis Hamilton coming towards me right now. It is indeed no entry curve there for Lewis. No exit curve, but a much more poised Mercedes at least that time. Not fighting the car nearly as much. Still right now.
Press down at turn 11. It's a brilliant corner. This is a good race. These trackside over the drag strip, and then you walk across the drag strip and you get to turn 11. There's fantastic grandstand seats around this place, and under the floodlights it just looks even better. But it is a good corner, turn 11, to assess the pecking order, and it was pretty indicative of performance going into race 1 last year. Great to have Jolien down there trackside. Give us all the insight. We're now on board with Lewis Hamilton continuing to push on. His last lap time was a 1:34.3. His best of the day, a 1:33.5. We'll go from one world champion to another. Further back down at turn number 1. Fernando Alonso continuing to log laps for Aston Martin, and he is on his 15th tour of the session so far after a damaged floor impeded his running. Hamilton is on his 27th lap of the day. So 2 hours and 15 minutes to go on the opening day of Formula 1 testing in 2023, where the red flag was brought out by Aston Martin and Felipe Drugovich, who was kind enough to join us in the commentary box a few minutes ago. But after that, he ran 40 laps on the board and recovered that nicely. The driver on the back foot in this session, the McLaren of Lando Norris, only 5 on the board, and changes being made at the front of the car. And they are not able, no sign of activity down there, looking out the commentary box window, down at McLaren. So the situation's still on pause for the British team and driver. Not the ideal start to his season. The only driver on the podium outside of the big 3 teams, Red Bull, Ferrari and Mercedes last year.
McLaren saying that they're just conducting some precautionary repairs with the aim of continuing their run pattern.
So hopefully he'll get some running with the track in its best conditions, in the conditions that we'll have for qualifying the opening Grand Prix of the year in a week's time. We're on board with the world champion. What lap is he on now? 109. This is the 109th tour of the day. P1 at the moment, and ahead of his old teammate Carlos Sainz, Lewis Hamilton. And you see those two back together on track, racing as they did so entertainingly through 2021 on the teams equal to that battle, seeing where Ferrari can get in the mix as well. Ferrari today, if you're just catching up on all of the action, they've announced they're going to make a change to the strategy. They've sent the long-time incumbent Naki back to the factory for a role there. Their new chief strategist, Ravin Jain, who obtained his undergrad and his master's from the University of Oxford. We go on board with a driver who looks set to set the fastest time of the session so far. We're climbing the hill now. Terrific speed. If you consider this the first day of testing, terrific speed carried through there. And a little bit of a correction. You see so many of those as he heads to the back straight. Not much left to do now. The two-time world champion, he cranks it off into that final corner, runs on the curb, gets railroaded off the road. You go to the rear camera there to see the effect it led. And even though it was a scruffy final corner, the 109th lap, the two-time world champion, is the fastest lap of the day so far, a 1:32.8. And that felt like actual commentary for the first time today. I really enjoyed that.
I love how much he's pushing already. It shows you how much confidence, again, like we were saying earlier, that he's got in that car at the moment. And that is ominous.
And this is going to be the only time that he does have the opportunity to do that, of course. This time of day, he's only going to get this once. That's right now.
And this is heading to turn 4. Getting himself to go wider still. And then having to back it off. Coming out of the DRS zone. And all 4 wheels off the racetrack.
It's only testing.
But it's only testing.
Doesn't matter.
And that's the fastest time on the board. And that was the final corner that we were on board from. So that's the trackside view. And whilst that was all in progress, French driver, French team, and the lock-up, and into turn 10, keeping it on the road, turning downhill, braking. We will see so much of that across the next 3 days, and the 3 days of the Grand Prix weekend to start the year.
It is quite amazing looking down the order of the teams, and when we think about the fact that Alpine may have ended up with Pierre Gasly sort of a little bit by mistake, but they've got now a very experienced lineup with 2 Grand Prix winners. Yeah. And when we look at McLaren, of course embroiled in the fight for 4th over these last few years in the World Championship, who have not only one of the youngest driver lineups in the field, but also now a driver lineup that has not yet brought home a Grand Prix victory. And I did see an interesting stat that Oscar Piastri is now 1 year younger and Lando Norris now 1 year older than was Bruce McLaren when he took his first Formula 1. But I don't know, I just found it quite fascinating. When you look at that midfield battle and you look at the range of experience, there's the really surprising statistic that Lawrence brought up about this team having the most experienced driver lineup in the field. But when you look at Grand Prix victories, that McLaren have none. They're a very inexperienced lineup.
It was similar when Carlos Sainz went to Ferrari and Charles was stuck with 2 career wins. And Ferrari's lineup only has 2 wins. With the right machinery, things change very, very quickly. Wonderful shot for Fernando Alonso. Driving away from the setting sun before he comes back home and crosses the line.
Don't get that in Barcelona.
You do not. Looking down the pit lane, a man who's been in the Barcelona pit lane time and time again is Sam Collins. He's made his way to Haas.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I thought I'd just I'd be actually chucking in a bit to show everybody this, because it's one of the most exciting bits of engineering I've seen on the cars this year so far. It's only been a day. Have a look on the inside of the front wing end plate here on that
Turn 4 in the big braking and the slow speed. But I have seen it come through here, and it's coming right towards us now, it looks like. That is not, that's Flovis green, and it's slow moving Williams. So there you go. Oh, that's a bright green. Too bright, and it's Logan Sargent on a slow lap this time. But the Aston Martin in the hands of Fernando Alonso looks better than the midfield cars that it will be up against through this corner at least. Again, combating understeer on the entry, which is getting pushed towards that exit. You have to wait for the throttle. The Aston looks better, more poised on the entry, better than the Alpine as well, which looks okay. But this is probably the one fast corner on the circuit, so being good at this corner doesn't guarantee you success anywhere else, but it does suggest that you've got a good working package in the faster corners, and it's a great baseline to go from. Hamilton on a slow lap, so we'll wait for him to come through on a fast lap on the next time around, but it seems like he's been very quiet as well. I haven't seen him too much this afternoon, Lewis Hamilton. But it's a tricky corner then to come through, nibble just the slightest bit of apex, but in the fast corners you don't want to be taking the curb on the apex, on the exit as well. It falls away from you, and it's easy if you touch the curb too much. You're just going to get sucked off to the outside there and end up in trouble. And I think Charles Leclerc had a spin this time last season, so that's one you want to avoid. The entry curb is one you can take, and that's another one where we're seeing differences between the drivers and the cars. Ferrari and Red Bull, Verstappen and Leclerc able to take a lot more curb on the entry, which just means that you're widening your racing line and having a wider radius corner vis-a-vis, you can carry a bit more speed. Some of the other ones, Magnussen in the Haas, tentative with the curb. The AlphaTauri as well, tentative with that entry curb. And if you can't take it, you're just narrowing your corner. Sargent not on that entry curb, going very wide on the exit as well with understeer, pushing on that time around, taking a little bit of exit, but average, par for the course in the midfield, I would say the Williams here. And again, no entry curb for the Alfa Romeo there of Valtteri Bottas. Cars in general, they're looking so much better than last year though, guys, around the circuit. Last year it was porpoising, the cars were looking scruffy, sliding on both axles. It's just an evolution of the rules, but we've had 12 months of it to then produce this car, and they're looking so much better. I'm waiting for a Mercedes. I'm hoping this is going to be Lewis Hamilton coming towards me right now. It is indeed no entry curb there for Lewis. No exit curb, but a much more poised Mercedes, at least that time, not fighting the car nearly as much. I still think, though, guys,
at the bouncing situation. Consistently for Carlos Sainz in the morning session, and Charles Leclerc has been doing that since lap 1 because he's Charles Leclerc. Great to watch trackside of his too. This is what it looked like on board. Minor correction when you go on board. Fantastic shot as he heads down to the final corner. 2 hours, 5 minutes to go. Logan Sargent circulating. 112 laps on the board for Max Verstappen. He's currently on 113. The benchmark time, a 132.8. The reigning world champion picking up where he left off. And there's the Flovis that caught Jolin out with his car ID. There was a little bit of a fear at the start of the day that some liveries were going to look too similar, but having seen all the cars, you used to have to wait. When I first started watching Formula 1 to the qualifying session in the middle of the night to see the cars out. You didn't get practice, let alone testing. And now we get to see the same camera angles that we're going to see in a week's time. And the car's distinctive and looking for great designs across the board. And the Williams bringing itself to turn number 4, thanks to the driving talent of Logan Sargent. And Sargent now is on his 36th lap of the day. As we go further through testing, we'll keep you updated with the lap times across the board, but today it's all about the mileage.
Yeah, he and Nick de Vries just getting through the laps, plugging on, doing what they need to do as rookies, going through the aero runners, and yeah, keeping it tidy, nothing fancy. Both of them doing a pretty solid job.
Charles Leclerc heading back out from the pit lane. We continue on with Logan Sargent, ticking down to the end of our 2-hour section in the combox. He continues to just carry on rolling laps. No performance run going on at the moment. He's got the flow viz on the car. He's got the sun to stare directly into, and he's had a productive Aston Martin, and these are valuable moments behind the wheel for the driver who was